Well, seeing as I'm in Prague, I thought it'd be nice to do a picture of Prague. So I picked up a postcard. This is actually really, I think, a really nice picture of Charles Bridge. It is by a chap called Radim Schulz, and you can find him at www.sulc.com if you want to see any of his other work. But I thought it'd just be quite nice to use as a demonstration piece. Because the postcard is a different format to what I'm going to be painting, I need to resize this. So I have made myself an aperture frame, just out of an old pizza box or something, which I can then use to decide which portion of the picture I'm going to include and which I'm going to leave out. So I've decided which portion of the postcard I'm going to paint, and I've just taped it on the back. I've marked up my board. The mount is going to sit here, so everything outside of that line I don't need to worry too much about because it's not going to get seen. I can now start transferring, you know, what's on here to what's on there. These lines here represent the halfway mark, and these little lines represent the 1/3. So I know that if I put my ruler across here, this 1/3 line, the bottom of the bridge is just underneath it. So there's my 1/3 line. This sort of vanishing point here is roughly going to be here because it sits exactly on the central line in that direction. Again, I can work out from these lines where the edge of this bridge comes. So from here up to here, the same on this side, from here up to here is this whole area of bridge. So I can take my ruler and just roughly mark that in. Now I'm not going to put any of this in yet because I want to work from the top down, and I want to put all of this gorgeous yellowy sky in, and then I'll come over the top with these distant buildings, and then over the top again with the darker statues. I'm going to start over here with some of this white. You can see this sun sits just about on this 3rd line, so I want to preserve, you know, that real whiteness of that sun. So I want to get the pastel in there first. I'm then just going to cover this whole sky area, get a layer on. The other thing worth mentioning, when you're using this abrasive paper, is don't rub too hard, because if you do, you're likely to lose your fingertips. So a gentle touch, get that first layer of pastel on. This paper will take layer upon layer upon layer, so don't worry, just get it on there. Don't worry about overlapping the edges because, as you know, we're going to cover those up with the mount. And even though you can see this halfway line, there's my halfway line, you know, most of this is going to get covered up with these distant buildings. I still want to get some of this colour underneath the distant buildings first. So now we've got that first layer on, we'll start to build up the different gradients. And if you're wondering what colours I'm using, I have absolutely no idea. You know, once you've taken the labels off to start using the pastels, I have no idea what colour they are. So I do it by eye. I just pick out the colours that I want. You know, for here I just pick out the colours that I've got that best match. Once you've got all those colours on, you can really just start to blend them all together. It certainly needs a bit more of the darker orange over here. And you can feel when you've got enough pastel on the paper, you can really just start to push it around. And blend it in. You can get these sort of lovely effects by just pushing it around, really, on the paper. That's probably enough. I'm quite happy with that. For now, anyway. So I'm just marking in where these distant buildings are going to sit. Using, you know, the ruler to mark your halfway points, etc. So you can see, you know, where things should be sitting. This is this middle cross. Makes it easier to get things where they should be sitting. So I've just roughly marked where things are. I don't want to cover the, you know, background sky completely. I want this to just be quite hazy. So if you go over the edges like I have here, you can just take a cocktail stick. This is a good tool to have in your arsenal. can just get back to what's underneath. Okay, so now I've got a layer of grey on, I can start to just blend it and see how it looks. I'm not going to bother with any of these statues just yet, because that's going to be the last layer that goes on after I've finished the more distant buildings. So I want to just get some more of this original yellow colour all the way down to where the bridge comes, really, because this shows through. You know, there's some very pale bits that I then will cover up, but I want there to be a sort of base layer. Okay, so now I can come down into this with this grey that I was using for the rest of it. And there's my third line, which is here. So I know I don't really have to come too much lower than that. I want to get a bit more detail in, make these a bit more defined, certainly on the shadow edge of the buildings. I'm going to go one shade darker. It's a nice thing about having these edges, you can test out your pastels on them and know that they're going to get covered up. So I just wanted to go a bit darker so that I can just get a bit more definition on the shadow side of some of these buildings. So there's quite a lot of orange over this side, which I'm going to bring in. that's probably what I'm really going to do with this background layer. I'll next start working on these statues and the foreground of the bridge. So I'm now just starting to put these darker statue figures in here with a combination of a darker grey, it's not quite black but it is very nearly, and a dark pastel pencil. I think that's starting to look something like the photograph, don't you? So I'm now just going to get some more of this base colour that I'm using. Over the foreground. I want shadows here in front of or underneath these statues here. Okay, I feel like I'm fiddling now, which is always a good sign to put your pastels down. Stand back. Put the mount on. See what you think it looks like. And then call it a day for the time being. Let it stand there and, you know, look at it tomorrow. See if there's anything glaringly obvious that needs touching up. But yep, I think that's finished. And if you decide to have a go at it yourself, then please let me know how you get on. So these are the colours I was using. Yellows, oranges, grey and black.